Welcome everybody to the Salt Talk with Jermaine Alberty. This is part 2 of episode number 4. September, it's National Recovery Month. Every person, every family, every community should know how to support and respond to someone on that journey of healing and recovery. And I'm so excited that joining us on this episode, this part 2, is my friend, my brother, Antoine Roston. You see, Antoine was shot over 4 years ago. But my friend, he made it. One of the greatest traumas in his life. And he has joined us on the Salt Talk to share with us his story of healing and how he continues to thrive and even survive on his journey of recovery. So my friends, stay tuned as you hear this amazing story of the triumph that he experienced in the face of one of his greatest adversity. This is Jermaine Alberty, and welcome to the Salt Talk. Hey, welcome to the Salt Talk with Jermaine Alberty. I am so excited to join you. September is National Recovery Month. Theme, every person, every family, every community. Matter of fact, it's so important to note that recovery doesn't happen in a bubble. It requires every person, every family, every community member to wrap themselves around those individuals who are living with mental health challenges. And it's really important that we make this correlation between recovery and trauma, because so many times people tend to only focus on recovery as it relates to addictions, even mental health challenges. But trauma and violence is something that often goes hand in hand. What we know is trauma is described on an individual basis as an event or circumstance that results in physical harm, emotional harm, or life-threatening harm. And what we also know is that trauma has a lasting adverse effect on a person's mental health, physical health, emotional health, social well-being, and even a person's spiritual well-being. It's so important to lay out that trauma has no boundaries. Listen, no matter how old you are, no matter what your gender is, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, your race, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, trauma is common for adults and children in American communities across this country. And it's time to talk about it. It's really important that we talk about how we can be part of the healing and recovery process for those who experience trauma. With me, I have with me my brother, my friend, Antoine Roston. Welcome, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Listen, it is so good to have you here. I believe that person's stories are just that, their stories. And so I never try to take someone's story and tell it as my own. So I would love for you to share with our listening audience the trauma you experienced a time ago to the best of your ability.
Oh, no sweat. I talk about this a lot. Almost 5 years ago, exactly the date, October 29th of 2017, about 1:30 a.m., I was driving for the company Lyft, picking up someone, and encountered a young man who, of course, was drunk because I was at a bar, and he had his issues, but it turned into a violent interaction that resulted in me being shot at 6 times, and I got all those bullets somewhere in my body. So so that's basically the trauma that I experienced being shot while working.
Now, the way you describe that, man, is with such calmness that I'm sure folks are like, wait a minute, did he just say he got shot?
That's what a lot of people say when I tell them, but it's like, how should I say it? More like, I was shot. And not saying that I'm not still a little traumatized by it. I'm just learning to live with it and cope with it, and so I can tell the story straight up like like it need to be. And only when I go into the details of it do I really get on the emotional side of that experience, because I relive it when I go through the details.
That there, to me, is so important, because when you think about the word recovery, it's defined as this: a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. And this is interesting. The interesting thing is the word normal.
Right.
Because I think what's normative for one person most definitely is not normative for another person.
Right.
And so people don't understand that recovery doesn't always mean that somehow you get back to how you used to be.
No. And I thought that, but I will never be the guy that I was on October 29th at 12 midnight. Because this happened about, like I said, 1:30. But that forever changed my life. It's changed my my faith in mankind. It's changed my spiritual perspective. It's shifted my marriage and relationships. The anxiety that I never had before, I now have. PTSD is real. It's not as bad as it was like 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. But I still suffer in ways that were not present before. And physically, I'm just not the same, from my speech, my tongue, to my left arm. You know, I'm grateful for life, and I'm grateful for what I do have. But I mean, yeah, I'm not the same, but I'm recovered.
And recovery is a journey. And I think it's so important people understand that the journey of recovery is not one that means that every day you're going to be happy and joyful and like, hey, I'm recovered.
No.
It's a journey. It's ups and downs. And, you know, the other thing that I think that when we talk about the word recovery, it's defined as an action or a process of regaining possession or control of something stolen or lost. You have had a lot of things stolen from you by way of this traumatic experience.
Yes.
And have lost things too. Talk to me how you regained some of the things that you've lost and that's been stolen from you. Because it's a process. You're still regaining, but you've regained a lot.
Yeah. The first step was forgiveness. I forgave the man immediately because I didn't want to be trapped in anger and trapped by that whole experience. I refused to let that define me as that moment would define me the rest of my life. We had to do physical therapy. I do my own personal speech therapy, prayer, worship, just talking about it. I went to therapy, you know, talked to my mom all the time. I worked out. One thing, I'm a musician, I'm a drummer. And so one of my thoughts was, with my left arm being paralyzed, I wouldn't be able to play again. So my determination was to play again. I currently play again. So just kind of setting goals and seeing myself in a particular place and position and working towards that is what kind of has helped me get where I'm trying to go.
You know, what's interesting is you used the word that forgiveness. And what's interesting is people marvel at how Christians sometimes are able to say, I forgive somebody who has wronged them. And particularly in the Black community, we often see people say, you know, well, I forgive him. You know, I'm going to just, you know, I'm going to forgive him, and I'm going to just trust God and we'll take care. You know, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting.
Oh, hell no. I mean, no, I don't know what.
You can say hell on the podcast.
Ain't no way in the world. My whole thing was, I forgive him, but I want him to receive full repercussions of his decision to injure me like he did. Because in the way that if I had shot him, it would have happened, because I'm a black man and he's a white man. So I want him to receive the same type of punishment that I would get had I shot him. because this man was trying to kill me. Period. It was a 45, and I can't like really talk about the details, but I mean they are what they are. It's documented. This dude got mad because I didn't fist bump him.
Yeah,
bro, I've been in some situations where people probably should have shot me, but this time I was on my good behavior. I was trying to be. He even told me I was cool. So the whole concept of that occurring just threw me off. I forgive him, but I heard somebody say forgiveness isn't about releasing the other person. Forgiveness is about releasing you. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to be trapped by being angry at this guy. I still have feelings about it, but I'm not focused on revenge and anger and angry at him. And I'm still trying to live. I realized immediately I had life, so I got to get to living it, you know?
Well, I think that most definitely when people hear forgiveness, they go, "Oh, that's so wonderful." And for me, I'm going, listen, you can forgive, but we don't forget the trauma.
No.
Because the trauma is there. And that's what recovery is so important about. Mm-hmm. There's this thing, also another R word that's really important with recovery. And that's the word resiliency.
Oh, yeah.
People often look at you and they wonder, wow, this dude is resilient.
I hear that a lot.
And where did that resiliency come from? I know it's rooted in multiple things. One, you are a person of faith. Mm-hmm. I often say I'm not a man of God. Mm-hmm. I'm a man after God. Mm-hmm. If man of God means that I can't make a mistake, I don't want the title.
Right.
If man after God means I'm seeking God's heart, then I can do that.
I can do that.
So I know you are a man after God, and even being a man after God, there was this crisis of faith that you and I talked about. And I think it's important for the listening audience to understand that just because you forgive somebody and you are a person of faith doesn't mean that your faith doesn't come into crisis. Mm-hmm. So if you would like to share with them kind of like, how'd you manage this crisis of faith?
Okay. Well, I answered two things you said. So you asked where did resilience come from? Mm-hmm. My father. Mm. My father, I used to hang out with him. So when he went and worked out, I went and worked out. If he went and rode his bike, his 10-speed, never mind you, I was on my Huffy, but I would go ride with him. And I'm talking about miles. And my dad would never let me quit. So I would be tired, of course, but he would tell me to push. Keep going. You work your way up the hill. In fact, he'd be like, "Go, come on, boy. Bring your ass on. Come on, boy. You younger than me. Get up there, get up there, get up there." You know, that type of stuff. And though you hated it as a kid, it taught me to push through. It taught me resilience. It taught me to just, with life changing, you just roll with the punches, as they say. You evolve. You figure out how you can be successful and use those moments to catapult you to the next level. And that's what I did. And then when it comes to being, the what did you call it? The crisis of faith. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I don't know that I've dealt with it yet. I'm still going through it.
Pause right there. Pause there. That's the most honest answer that I think that a lot of super Christians would not have admitted what you just said. Yeah, you said, and I said super Christians because I think that we have this ideal sometimes in the Christian faith that we're supposed to have it all together all the time. Hallelujah, howdy, all that stuff. I'm too blessed to be stressed. People have heard me say this stuff, but to say, you know what? I don't think I really have come to that place where I have overcome it. Yeah, I'm still living with it. I'm still living in the midst of it. Yeah. Sometimes we use words that we think people know the meanings of. I like to define words. Resiliency refers to an individual's ability to cope with change and adversity. Yeah. So this, to me, what's really interesting is with this crisis of faith and the coping skills that it takes to still trust a God. I'm going to get in trouble right here. This might be one of those episodes I have to label not for the saints. Because I'm going to have some of those, not for the saints. Right. Because And the reason why I want to say this out loud is because a lot of folks are like, God will never leave you nor forsake you. And yet in that moment, there has to be a question. Where was God at in the moment? I despise sometimes testimony service because people be like, yo, God did it for me. He could do it for you.
Right.
And they had a gun and the gun jammed and I'm here today.
Right.
And you were like, so why didn't that happen in this case?
Damn gun worked fine.
You know, and so, Howard Stone James Duke wrote a book called How to Think Theologically. And in that book, they address embedded theology versus deliberative theology. Embedded theology is rooted often in our Sunday school teachings, what grandma taught us. You take 2 steps, take 1 step, God take 2. God, all these kind of cliches and sayings that we have. And what happens is when life challenges what you were taught traditionally or what scripture taught, it catapults us into saying, okay, God, where were you in the midst of this?
Yeah.
I know you're still a man of faith, but I just think it's important that oftentimes spirituality is linked to recovery.
Sure.
But people sometimes find themselves like questioning, like, okay, where was God in the midst of my traumatic experience?
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious. I mean, like, I know that you're on that journey of this crisis of faith and still finding that path.
So as a former pastor and all of that type of stuff, that was my life. Even at that moment before this all occurred, my wife and I was talking about getting back in ministry and things of that nature. So, what's that word you like to use? Conundrum?
Conundrum.
Conundrum?
It's conundrum.
Yeah, conundrum. The conundrum of all this is that in that moment you're thinking that. So, in the moment I'm like, where is God? And then I couldn't question where was God. Because Because he was there the whole time. Because I didn't want to do the trip. I should have canceled the trip. Because my wife had told me if I didn't feel like I needed to do something, don't do it, because the climate was different. And it seemed like people were like white men was willing to come after me. So he gave me that warning. I had that unction, even to the point where the GPS, I was following it, even though I knew where I was going, got me lost. So there was a frustration that should have caused me to just say, no, I'm not doing this. But I pushed through trying to be integral. So he was there right there. Then he was there in the midst of me being shot. Because the dude had a laser on the gun. He tried to hit me in my chest, but the bullet went to my shoulder. That bullet is still in my back. It moved to my back. Then he ran up on me and shot me in my face. On the side of my neck, up under my jaw. The back part of my jaw. The bullet went in through there. Fractured my jaw. Came out, blew out my whole left side bone gone. My lower jaw gone. That don't even exist. Missing 3 teeth or whatever right there. All that type of stuff. Bullet comes out. But if this is what I'm talking about, the details.
Yeah, that's it.
But if I hadn't remained calm and aware, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So even in the midst of all that, where I'm getting hit, I thought that this other gentleman that was there got involved and hit me with a bat or a crowbar or something, and that made me turn my head looking to see where he was. And because I turned my head, the other bullets hit my ear and went up the back of my head instead of going through my neck and face. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here. So where was God? He was there. Now, my problem now is trying to figure out this whole church cliche, God got a purpose for you. What was that purpose? I had faith. I didn't need that to have faith. So what is it for? What is the point of having to have gone through that? Because I did everything. I didn't go into the military because I didn't want to be shot. I didn't gang bang because I didn't want to be shot. I didn't sell drugs because I didn't want to be shot. You get where I'm going? And we grew up in the 80s and 90s. This is what was happening all around us. So for me to get to 41 years old, working, really minding my business, trying to provide service, and I get shot, I just can't wrap my mind around why that had to happen to me.
And I tell you, man, I think that becomes the conundrum, as you said. Word of the day, conundrum. That becomes a conundrum because life is not as easily laid out. You know, it's like sometimes it's like, if I do this, if I do that, if I do this, this should be the result. And then the result don't come.
Right.
Like you said, you did everything you was told to do to stay out of the situation. And then here trouble comes finding you.
Right.
It's one of those things kind of where, one, I'm so grateful that you are with us.
Yeah.
Because the work that you are called to do in this earth realm is not done.
No.
And the reality is that to answer the question of the listening audience who would say he went through all of that and he still has faith in God, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the reality is that faith and doubt are not mutually exclusive of one another, because I believe doubt actually feeds my faith.
Right.
Doubt helps me to go, oh, really?
Yeah.
Show yourself now.
Yeah.
So recovery is this highly personal process. And I think that's what's important about it. Like, it's not a cookie cutter kind of piece.
Right.
It is personal, and it includes multiple things like clinical treatment, medications, faith-based approaches, peer support, family support, self-care, and other approaches. And here's the key thing that people need to remember is that recovery is characterized by continual growth.
Continual growth.
It's
not a process.
Yeah, it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process because there are setbacks in life.
Yeah. And
that's why resilience, that we mentioned earlier, is this key component of recovery. This show is called The Salt Talk for a reason, because I think we ought to be salty. And not in that negative way of salty. I believe that we ought to bring flavor into this world. The world that we're in, they should know we are here by the flavor that we bring into the atmosphere. So the acronym SALT stands for serve, affirm, love, and transform. And I often ask all of my guests to talk to me about how, when they leave this space that we're in, this, how they go out in the world and how they make their salt known. And so I know that you're serving folks even now in Kansas City by way of your business. It's amazing the fact that the very business that got you in a situation, you still have the resiliency to still be doing the work.
My therapist was impressed because I told her, I decided to do.
Hold on. Black man therapy?
Yeah, I went to therapy.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
Probably need to go back. But, yeah. So she said, she was like, I was like, I feel like I need to. I felt like I needed to get back on the Lyft app and do the Lyft stuff, just to get over dealing with strangers and people and things of that nature. And my therapist was like, well, where did you get that idea from? I said, I don't know, just seemed like the right thing to do. Fall off the bike, get back on. She said, you're that word, so resilient. She's like, I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't even think as a therapist, I would have thought to tell you to do that. Like, that's pretty amazing. And so I serve my community with my business. Now the difference is that you got to make an appointment and prepay, and we kind of have an ideal because our prices isn't just allowing every Tom, Dick, and Harry to jump in the car type thing. So that helps, but we're still serving the community that way. I still I get involved with some organizations that help battered women, that service children who have lost parents to violence. because that could have been my kids in that program. So that's stuff I do. And of course, I still attend church when I can. Business has been pretty good. I'll be busy. But I try to do that and things of that nature. And I really try to leave some laughter wherever I go. This was kind of sad, but I'm a pretty lighthearted, fun guy. So I try to leave that and make people aware. You never know what other people are going through. So just be mindful that people could be going through something that you can't see or something you don't know about their past or whatnot. So kind of be kind. Try to be kind and gentle with people. And that's what I try to do for the most part.
Man, you're one of the most loving brothers I know, and I am so glad that you are with us. And, that is to me, that love, that kindness, that compassion is how I define love, is how you're transforming communities. And so I want to always leave my listening audience with some tips. And so I want to leave you with 6 tips that you can use for self-care when overcoming trauma. Trauma related to some violence, trauma related to even abuse of some kind. And so the first thing is you have to recognize the effects of trauma. It's really important that you recognize those warning signs, and it's important that you seek help immediately. One thing you don't want to try to do is force somebody to talk about their trauma because they may not be ready for that conversation. And just in this interview alone, when we first started off, there was this lightheartedness, but reliving the details is where that post-traumatic stress comes in.
Right.
And so really when somebody's have experienced some kind of trauma in their life, we don't force them to tell their story. We invite them to tell their story. And so it's important to recognize those warning signs. It's also important to understand the importance of healing and understand that healing just doesn't happen overnight, but it takes time. Grief doesn't have an expiration date. Neither does the process of recovery. It is something that's really going over and over again. The third thing is to embrace positive affirmations, to be able to affirm oneself, because negative self-talk tears the spirit down. So that positive affirmation is so important. This morning, I watched this brother do some Pilates and some other stuff. So number 4, he got it down, y'all. It's called exercise. Kickboxing, yoga, dance, cardio, running. All those things can be things that can help a person when they're managing that trauma. Number 5 is embrace creativity. A study said arts therapy was proven to help survivors of PTSD by having them create and integrate. And in 2018, the National Center for Biotechnology Information had conducted a study where they had a group of participants take part in 8 75-minute sessions where they were told to create artwork based on a certain theme, either nature, religion, or color. And through this form of art therapy, the NCBI reported that most of the participants in the study showed regression in their drawings of the trauma or the aftermath. And as a result, they created something that helped them express themselves in a transformative way. And so it could be writing, drawing, painting, playing or writing music, arts and crafts, anything that helps you to be able to do a therapeutic approach. Art can be therapeutic, and doesn't require you to have a therapist to go through it. Just write down, journal, just capture that right there. The last step, everybody, is don't be afraid to seek help. It's so very, very important. Listen, you have been listening to Jermaine Albert with the Salt Talk. I want to give my guest, Antoine Roston, and after all these years, I know what the T stand for now, and Antoine T. Roston. D stand for. That's funny. Listen, I want to remind people, if you are experiencing trauma, depression, anxiety, any kind, never forget 988 is available. 988 is the new 3-digit line. If you are suicidal, if you're in a crisis, reach out to 988. And I want to end this podcast with giving my friend, my brother, opportunity to give any last words he may have.
The only last words I would give is just know that when I played football, our coach used to tell us that our bodies could take like 100 times more pain and more whatever that he was abusing us with than we could ever think. And that built resilience and that built strength and gave us the juice, if you would, to get through that particular practice. And I would just say that to anybody that's going through or have experienced what I've had experience, have watched somebody go through. The people that see me get shot are dealing with trauma as well. All of those type of things. Know that you can get through anything because the human spirit is powerful and very strong.
My man, what powerful words. The human spirit is very powerful and very strong. And that's why we can thrive together in community. We don't have to do it again. Well, listen, my friends, you've listened to another episode of the Salt Talk with Jermaine Alberty. So glad you joined us. And I look forward to seeing you again at the next episode.